Ma parole, les Alouettes de Montréal ont atteint la Coupe Grey à quoi doit-on s'attendre, Mr. Garland? How was my French from Google Translate on the spot? Alouettes in the Grey Cup this week, baby. Let's start there before we talk about our miserable teams. Nikki, what should we expect?
Well, I'll save you a little bit here. Pour la première fois en 13 ans, les Alouettes de Montréal
Ah,
vont à la Coupe Grey. So for the first time in 13 years, the Montreal Alouettes are going to the Grey Cup. No one expected them to win this past Saturday against the Toronto Argonauts. Argos had everything going for them. They were 16-2 on the season, 9-0 at home. Every single award except for most outstanding Canadian, they had somebody nominated for this season. That one factor, the most outstanding Canadian award, the East nominee belongs to Marc-Antoine Dequoy of the Alouettes, who kicked off the game for the Owls with a pick six on the opening drive for the Argonauts, one of two in that game. The defense forced a total of 9 turnovers for the Argonauts. And if you look on paper, the Argos had about 370 plus yards versus Montreal's 194. So if you looked at just that, Argos should have won. But again, defense for Montreal, creating those turnovers, whether it was on third and short, which for American fans in the CFL, they only go 3 downs as opposed to 4. But Tyrese Beverett, Stony Brook's own, was one of those big stops on one of the third and shorts. Got a huge stop. And Chad Kelly of the Argonauts, who's nephew of Hall of Famer Jim Kelly, just had a miserable day throwing picks, getting fumbles. Everything went wrong for the Argos. They didn't score until the fourth quarter of the game, but by that point, it was far too late for them. Alouettes wrapping it up at 38-17, winning the East, going to the Grey Cup for the first time in 13 years. And the last time they were there back in 2010, that was the second of 2 consecutive Grey Cup victories for them. And their quarterback was their current offensive coordinator, quarterbacks coach, CFL Hall of Famer, and third all time on the Pro Football passing yards list, Anthony Calvillo. So they're
And,
going.
and the Argos, if I'm not mistaken, won last year, right? Because I remember Chad Kelly came in halfway through the game last year and won it for them. So Swag Kelly was, I think, he became the MVP of the game last year in the Grey Cup.
Yeah, so actually he led the comeback late in the game. It was actually Enoch Mwamba who won the most outstanding player for the Grey Cup and also most outstanding Canadian.
Yeah, but Swag Kelly led the comeback there last year.
He did, and Kelly is nominated for the CFL's version of the MVP this year, most outstanding player. But he's gonna get to watch the game either from the stands in Hamilton on Sunday or from home. So which the game this Sunday is played at Tim Hortons Field in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada. So, and they're going up against the Winnipeg Blue Bombers for this one.
Well, that being said, Nikki, you're riding high from that. And first off, I'd like to thank you, PRS Cargo, for our everyday French, bringing us back to our all that days. And hopefully the Montreal Alouettes can bring us, some happiness with all of our sadness going on here. But speaking of sadness, Nikki, you're going from riding high with the Alouettes to riding very low with the Patriots.
I heard Belichick's going to the Grey Cup.
As we've gone over last week, Belichick, I'm hearing rumors that they might just amicably split after the season, but Belichick has perpetually pulled Mac Jones in games for Bailey Zappi throughout his career the last couple seasons. He did it once again in Germany this year in the last drive. And did Zappi really give them a better chance to win down 4? They very much had a chance in that game. Did Zappi truly give them a better chance in that Sunday morning game in Germany? Or were they just trying something because their offense really was non-existent all day?
I personally would want to keep the happiness rolling for myself. But I know you guys, especially you, Lizio, out of probably everyone here, have been waiting for the downfall of the Patriots for the past 20 years. So I guess I'll have to oblige you on that. But no, that was just it was a garbage time decision. At this point for the rest of the season, the Patriots just have to go into throw something at the wall and see what sticks. Right now, to kick off the bye week, there's the rumor that, and it looks like it could be true, that Mac Jones is being moved down to QB3 on the depth chart behind Will Greer, and now potentially Bailey Zappi could be the starter in Week 12 against the Giants.
So you're going from the Big Mac to the Zappy meal? Is that what's going on?
Apparently, that's what's happening here, and I really don't trust the Zappy meal and the quality of it. It's not that appealing.
He was worse. He was worse.
Exactly.
Than Jones, clearly,
that's it.
I get that the Jones, Nikki, I don't want to interrupt you, but I get that the Jones pick in the end zone was egregious.
Mm-hmm.
But I feel if he wasn't benched, the Patriots might have still won that game. I mean, I don't know what was going on with that Billy Zappi fake spike. Fill me in.
I don't know what was going on either. I mean, and this is a season where I don't think there's just one sole problem. You can't put the blame on one coach or player or one singular unit on the team. You've got to point a lot of fingers all over this Patriots team. The defense has finally had enough and I don't know why it took them this long to apparently come out and say they've had enough, but they have enough with the lack of offensive production. Too many 3-and-outs, and when you get to the rare red zone appearance, you're not converting you're not accomplishing what you're trying to do. You're not finishing a drive. You're settling for field goals, and you can't settle for field goals and expect the defense to pick up the slack every single week. It's madness. It's a bunch of misery. I mean, personally, like I said, I'd rather keep the happiness rolling, talking about how the Celtics are 8-2 right now. Bruins are 12-1-2, both starting off hot with their additions this year. Rangers won the World Series for the first time in franchise history, but misery of the Patriots is the big thing of the season here in the NFL. And I am fully expecting them to just compete for that top 3, maybe even top 2 draft pick. I'm already looking ahead to next year.
And speaking of that top pick, is this the lowest of the low of the Belichick era? I mean, you were riding high for so long. Obviously, once Brady left, it really was a question of was it Belichick or was it Brady? I think we have our answer. It's safe to say that Brady was really what made it click. But is this the lowest of the low for Belichick's time in New England?
This is absolutely the lowest of the low. We are fully witnessing the collapse of the Patriots. Did I think it was going to happen 3 years after Tom Brady left? No. I thought maybe we could have ridden a little bit more momentum for a few more years, but unfortunately, we've arrived at the collapse of the Patriots. I've fully accepted this. And I'm expecting next season, as I said last year, either we somehow get Caleb Williams in the draft, or a new guy I think people should be looking at too, North Carolina quarterback Drake May. Yeah, I think we should be looking at him too. North Carolina, a school that's not known for football, very much a basketball powerhouse in college, but is ranked 22 overall.
Where have I seen that before?
Yeah. They're ranked 22 overall in college football right now. Southern California, not even in the top 25. But time will tell as it gets to the draft. I've got a fun little wager, too, for Week 12 with Mr. Tony Joseph here. That's going to be a matchup where the Patriots and Giants fans will compete to see who's going to bash their head through a wall harder.
Gosh.
So I'll give you this one here. If the Patriots win that game somehow, then for the following week's episode, you have to have a background for the entire recording of Tom Brady hoisting the Lombardi trophy in a Patriots uniform.
All right.
But if the Giants win somehow, we'll be fair to both teams on that, I will have the following episode, my background will be a picture of the David Tyree helmet catch.
Okay. You know what? You're on. But here's the thing.
I got to have some sort of fun. They haven't really let me have a lot of fun this year. So
the thing is, this is so weird. Patriots and Giants, it's usually such a special thing whenever they play. But I'll do it. I'll play along. Belichick, he might be looking at the sideline saying, is there room for me over there? I'm not even joking. If he wants to stay in football, the Giants, it's his original home, just saying. But
he
honestly,
won 2 Super Bowls as defensive coordinator there.
We could be looking at a battle of third-string quarterbacks, depending on the health of Tyrod Taylor. So we'll see.
We'll see. I'm just fully ready for them to wipe this season away. And this offseason, while Max still has 2 years left on his rookie deal, this is the offseason where they got to make a decision on if they're going to pick up that 5th-year option. I don't think that's going to happen. I honestly don't think it's going to happen.
Should they trade him?
I trade him. I think so. I think if they trade him, either get some picks in the draft and use those to get an advantage when the time actually comes for the draft, or get someone for the offensive line.
Was his
Well,
rookie
you're not going to get a lot for him, but go
was
ahead, Johnny.
Mac Jones' rookie season just a fluke? I mean, what has transpired between then and now?
I mean, as it looks right now, yeah, it looks like that season could be viewed as a fluke. But I mean, back then, people were expecting like the Zach Wilsons and the Justin Fields of that draft to be the guys for that season. Then all of a sudden, it was, well, Mac Jones is the best quarterback out of this bunch for the first round in that year. And then I don't know if he's got the yips, if how deep inside his head he is. I don't know. There's reports now that he's apparently lost the locker room. He saw him getting chewed out in every which way direction possible by Bill O'Brien on the sidelines, and I have no clue what's happening here. What's going on?
Feel bad for the kid.
So there's three of us in this chat that have quarterbacks from that draft. You already mentioned two of the others, Nick. John, I'm going to move over to you because you're the one winner from this last week in multiple ways here. Because the Bears won. And by doing so, they still improve their draft stock. This is a very rare scenario where winning actually helps your draft stock because not only do the Bears have their own pick, which is still, I think, a top 5 pick, they have the Panthers pick. And by beating the Panthers, who currently hold the number 1 overall pick, which belongs to the Bears. So that being said, the Panthers probably should have just held on to their own pick, not traded up to take Bryce Young, because guess what? They'd be sitting with the number 1 overall pick next year and wouldn't belong to the Bears. So what do the Bears, looking at the Bears, do you build around Justin Fields, or is it, if you're getting rid of your head coach, which is most likely the case, unless he's got some things up his sleeve, like he claimed at halftime last week, or if you're wiping the slate clean with him, are you bringing in a quarterback to pair with a shiny new coach with pairing a coach with a shiny new quarterback toy? Are you bringing in the Lincoln Riley, Caleb Williams combo at number 1?
The coach could be shiny too, depending on how bald he is. But go ahead, Johnny.
I have no idea what Eberflus was saying at halftime from the Thursday night game against the Panthers. I'm just about done with him. He's as dorky as they come. And we already dealt with Mark Trestman, Mr. former Montreal Alouettes, Nikki. I still have just cringe and just thinking about Mark Trestman from his days in the CFL. But besides the point,
much better CFL coach than he was an NFL coach.
Yes, he was. Yes, he was. Nothing against Mark Trestman, but in the CFL. But no, thank you. But yeah, the Bears are in a really interesting situation, guys. We have 7 games left, and a lot of Justin Fields backers are trying to say that this 7 games is kind of like a tryout for him to make this roster for the 2024 Bears. On the other hand, I'm a little torn because Justin, at the same time, hasn't given the Bears a complete resume. These 7 games are going to be huge. And in my opinion, I think the Bears and in Justin Fields' best interest, the two need to come together and ball out for these next 7 games here. I think this is more of, let's see if the Bears can increase Justin Fields' trade value, and they're going to move him this offseason. Let's remember that this current Bears regime in Ryan Poles, general manager, and Eberflus did not draft Justin Fields, number 11, several years ago in the first round. So he's not their guy. And quite frankly, Justin Fields is just, again, has a really incomplete record as a Bears starter. You can quickly go to his 6-25 overall record as a starter. But is that more on the Bears for failing him, or is that more on Justin? And this is what's maddening. If you're a Bears fan, I mean, we're doing this every 3 years. New coach, wipe the slate clean with a new coach, new general manager, and new quarterback, and it's just not sustainable. I just don't envision
the choir. I know the feeling.
I just don't envision a scenario where Fields is on the team next year. I mean, he really has to ball out and play at an MVP caliber type level for over these next 7 games. And these next 7 games, guys, it's kind of a tough stretch. I mean, the Bears have 4 divisional games, 2 with the Lions starting on Sunday at Detroit. They play the Lions 2 times in the next 3 weeks. Then they go to Minnesota to play Josh Dobbs and the resurgent Minnesota Vikings on Monday Night Football. They have 2 games in between that time, week 15 and week 16, 2 pretty winnable games against Atlanta and Arizona, and the Bears need to win against Arizona for draft pick purposes. Thank you for Arizona to bring Kyler Murray back to only increase the Bears' odds of that number 1 overall pick, now that the Cardinals have 2 wins when they were sitting at 1 win prior to this week. So 2 pretty winnable games there, but then they travel to Green Bay for week 17. So, if you're a Bears fan, honestly, the best thing that we all can hope for is for Justin to play well. Whether he's going to be on this team or not in 2024, that's the biggest question. It doesn't matter whether or not Eberflus is here. And I will say this, guys, for his tiring and just downright overall, I'm just kind of done with Eberflus. I will give him credit. The Bears defense has played much better this past month. The Bears are top 10 in rushing defense overall. They extended Big 97 Andrew Billings to a contract extension, big run stopper. So I will give credit to Eberflus. The Bears defense has played much better. But I feel like that's his lane. I mean, Eberflus isn't a head coach caliber kind of guy. So could the Bears potentially keep him and keep him as a defensive coordinator role? The Bears did something similar back to when they hired Matt Nagy several years ago. They retained Vic Fangio in that defensive coordinator role. Obviously, Vic Fangio, defensive coordinator, went on to become the Broncos head coach. You guys saw that didn't work out. So,
and he's currently the Broncos defensive coordinator.
No,
I like Vance Joseph's their defensive coordinator. Vance Joseph is the defensive coordinator of the Broncos after he was their head coach as well. So it's like weird that this happened.
As weird as that is. So,
Johnny, the writing's on the wall for Harbaugh based on what's going on with Michigan right now.
We've talked about this at length, guys. I would love for Harbaugh to come in and completely change this Bears culture. I'm a big fan of Barcelona.
And wouldn't he love to have Justin Fields, a 1,000-yard NFL rusher, best rookie season that we've seen in how long? I am so pro keeping Justin Fields. It's not even funny. I think it'd be a horrible mistake to move on from him.
You're not wrong, and most Bears fans are petrified and terrified at the idea that if we do decide to move on from Justin, that he's going to ball out elsewhere, that he's going to be an exceptional player for another franchise, and it will just go to show just what an utter failure this Bears organization is and has been over the last decade, several decades of developing and maintaining quarterbacks. The Bears have gone through almost 30 quarterbacks in my lifetime. Like, that is just not acceptable, and it's just downright sickening. So, again, I'm very torn at the idea of, should the Bears move on from him? Should they pick a guy like Caleb Williams or Drake May at the top of the draft? In my opinion, no matter what happens, what the Bears need to do with that Carolina pick, whether that's number 1 or number 2, they need to get the best overall player on the board. And there's nobody better on the overall draft board than Marvin Harrison Jr. The Bears would be foolish to move on or to pass up on Marvin Harrison Jr. Caleb Williams has kind of come back down to earth in these last several weeks. You're seeing him crying in the stands with his.
That was weird.
And despite what you might think of that, when you come to play in Chicago and you come to play quarterback for the Bears, you need to have a level of mental fortitude.
You need to have some thick skin to play in markets like Chicago and New York. That's for sure.
Exactly.
I'll say this about the crying. Crying doesn't mean you don't have tough skin, but optically with that piece of paper, it was not a good look for him. I guarantee you guys are crying in the locker room after tough losses all the time.
I'm concerned that Caleb Williams and Drake May mentally aren't ready to play in a big market like Chicago. And I know that Williams is considered this generational, once-in-a-lifetime prospect. But we've seen our last couple of weeks that defenses have given him fits. He hasn't put up the stats, and he's kind of come back down to earth a little bit. And a guy that, was a former Heisman Trophy winner, and everyone was pegging him to be the second-time Heisman Trophy winner this season. Doesn't really seem like that's going to be the case. So if I'm
telling you, my money's on Michael Penix to be the most successful out of the big three.
It's possible.
The Bears have a lot of riches right now. They're sitting on a lot of capital, but as a fan, it's it's really nerve-wracking when I should be excited that the Bears have all these pieces and we can do a lot of good. The Bears have done a lot of wrong in my lifetime and made some really head-scratching decisions, like taking the last really good North Carolina quarterback in Mitchell Trubisky and passing on Deshaun Watson
and Patrick Mahomes.
Yeah, we saw how that went.
So did a lot of teams on Mahomes.
I'm excited for the future, but I'm also really, really nervous and concerned. And again, whether or not I'm a Fields believer or not, because I am, I just don't envision a scenario where he's on this roster next year. It certainly seems like the Bears are going to cut ties with Eberflus. They're going to get a new head coach, and that head coach is going to want one of these two guys or somebody else.
I don't agree with that. That's where you lose me, because if I'm a head coach, if I'm a Jim Harbaugh, you're telling me you can give me Marvin Harrison Jr., maybe the best offensive tackle, maybe the best edge rusher, because basically I feel you're guaranteed to get Harrison if you want him based on the trend of Carolina right now. Unless a miracle happens, unless Bryce suddenly figures it out, which he looks lost. Very difficult rookie season on his end. You are guaranteed, like you said, to probably get the best player in this draft because you have that Carolina pick. You got 7 games with Fields. Because of that Carolina pick, you don't even have to think about tanking. And you're telling me DJ Moore and Marvin Harrison Jr. and improved blocking up front and Jim Harbaugh wouldn't work? Like, you're out of your mind to get rid of Justin Fields.
That's a kind of offense that could rival Miami, like when you think about it.
I'm totally with you, but the Bears don't have the balls. They don't have the cojones.
Harbaugh does.
Jim Harbaugh. But listen, sometimes you got to go back to go forward, right? There's no doubt that Jim Harbaugh, in the back of his mind, I bet he would come coach here. I mean, he doesn't really have to add much to his legacy. He's already has a great legacy, in my opinion.
He wants the Super Bowl. You know that.
I mean, despite everything that's going on with Michigan, whether or not he knew a part of this cheating scandal, whatever this is, whether or not he knows or not, the Bears need to reach out to him as well. This has to go both ways. So we'll see. We'll see what the Bears have up their sleeve, what Eberflus has up his sleeve. But let's talk about the Giants for a little bit, because Anthony, oh my goodness. I mean, I feel like I'm in misery watching the Bears every week. I cannot imagine what you're going through.
It's gotten worse. It's gotten worse.
So bad. And I felt awful watching the Cowboys just run up.
I'm surprised you watched. I mean, honestly, it's at a point.
Dallas, I'm sorry.
It's okay. It was a lock. 17.5 wasn't high enough.
I had a Cowboys team total of 28, which they hit at halftime right before. Yeah. I apologize about that. So, but yeah, what's going on with the Giants? I mean, talk to me.
The Giants are broken. The Giants are fundamentally broken. I can talk at nauseum about what Daboll should do or what Shane should do. I mean, I've beaten a dead horse with the mistakes they've made with the injuries. At this point, if you're healthy and able to play, please play. That's how much of a walking wounded we have situation here. The second Thomas comes back, he rolls his ankle, he manages to fight through the game. I mean, if you don't have him, we're not scoring 17 points. We're probably scoring 7 points. So it's just sad to see that the defense has lost life. I mean, obviously 2 weeks ago, I was thinking, hey, at least our defense can keep us in games. But with the headlines about McKinney, the headlines about Wink Martindale, and just the overall inefficiency on offense, Nikki, you're seeing it with the Patriots. Eventually, when your offense just gets so broken, the defense doesn't have the motivation to keep you in games. In fairness, the Jets have not fallen there yet. It hasn't happened yet. The defense is still showing up.
Still showing up. It hasn't happened yet.
But I'm telling you that fortitude and that mental belief is hanging by a thread, because the second you feel like you're in that, I don't want to say tank mode, but evaluation mode, I mean, you're not salivating like a defender. And I was talking very highly about Deonte Banks as a rookie corner. Well, he has to come in for Adoree Jackson and guard number 1 wide receivers. And what happens? He's struggling mightily. CeeDee Lamb did whatever he wanted on Sunday. And it kills me that Dallas is like licking their chops, doing whatever they can to run the score. I mean, they brought in Cooper Rush to air it out. I'm sorry. Like, classless and disgusting. Maybe they're still mad that Eli Manning signed the wall. I heard they painted it black, by the way. They painted over his signature. So there's obviously hatred and animosity there, but I sincerely hope Daboll says and remembers this and has something up his sleeves for his next opportunity next year.
Speaking
hopefully.
of Dable, I mean, what are your thoughts on him? Do you want him back next
Yeah.
year?
Yep. No,
Do you
we could lose
lost
every
locker
single
room?
game. Bring him back. He could lose the. I mean, that's the problem, right? Because he's at risk of losing the locker room. Seems like he already has. I would not have played McKinney after his comments, or at least sat him for a quarter. Show that you can't talk crap behind the coach's back. That even if you're right, it's wrong. Like in the case of Justin Fields, he was 100% right that coaching was the problem, but the way he did it did not do him any favors. So
Yeah, I mean,
I want Daboll back.
I don't think that they get rid of Dable. I think he really got dealt a bad hand this year with all the injuries that they had to deal with, especially with the quarterbacks. The offensive line injuries. They really got screwed
He deserves
royally,
some
and so
blame.
he does deserve some blame with how things were
part
handled.
of the trend.
However,
Yes, and so does Shane.
I do believe that he'll get another year. If things don't improve next year, if they seem still in disarray next year, then you can bring up the discussions. But he's a year removed from winning Coach of the Year and bringing that team into and winning a playoff game. So I don't think that they're, completely at a loss with him. I think it's pump the brakes. I know it's a very fast moving league, and everyone says, "What have you done for me lately?" But you can't just, because how many times are you going to hit the reset button? I mean,
don't
you've
hit
seen
the
it a couple
reset
times
button.
with like 1 year, 2 year things. You got to break that cycle. He's shown that he can do it with this roster. Pretty much, there wasn't a lot of turnover from the previous season with key pieces. So you'd have to think that they're going to get some more guys in there. With Ken Dorsey getting fired in Buffalo, I wouldn't be surprised if he brings him in.
Writing's on the
He's
wall.
very
Bring him
close
in.
with
Bring
Daboll,
him in.
so I wouldn't be surprised
Top
if he brings him
10
in.
offense. What are the Bills doing? We'll get to that later.
I wouldn't be surprised if he brings Ken Dorsey in as someone on the offensive side, on the offensive staff, to kind of bring in his buddy. And they worked very well together with Josh Allen, so I wouldn't be surprised.
I would like to. Here's what I'd like to see. I'd like to see Daboll call the plays throughout the year. It's kind of been a mystery who has done it, but that one half where he had the play sheet, we were rolling, even if it was against a bad team. That's what we expected to see going into this season. So, I mean, we have to break. John, you talked about a 3-year cycle. The Giants have been on a 2-year cycle with their coaches and everything. So this feels like any one of those second years. You could point to McAdoo, Shermer, or Judge. It has the exact same feeling where everything's broken, everybody's frustrated, and obviously something has to be done differently. John Mara, please go to Fiji, somewhere else, leave, don't do anything.
Go to a darkness retreat.
Let Shane get a better opportunity to put some things together with that, because we're still in cap hell because of Gettleman. That is why we have a Tommy DeVito as our third string quarterback. But we're going to free up some cap space coming into next season. If I'm Saquon Barkley, I'm running out the door if I'm him. But we'll see. He's made comments that he wants to stay. I think that may have changed literally this past week on the 4th and 2 zone read play that I still don't really understand. Nobody does. So we could talk ad nauseum about how bad they are. But here's my mini plan for next year. For the rest of this year, change up how you're calling the plays. Kafka, you're not going to be back, so stop having him do it. If he's not going to be back, why have him do it? So at least let Daboll do it for the interim. Tyrod might get healthy. Maybe you'll win a game or two. That's really your only hope. Waller, he should come back this year. That could definitely help. But right now, our roster is like a JV roster against the Cowboys or Eagles, and we still have to play the Eagles twice. They're going to absolutely destroy us. It's not going to be fun, but I would at least like to see stability in terms of what we're doing. Like every week, it seems like we're throwing crap at a wall and seeing what sticks. The coaches are between a rock and a hard place. I get it, so I don't really want to burn them for it. There's not a lot they can do, but the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over. So let's change it up a little bit. There's literally no point in playing DeVito. I don't understand why Nick Foles can't be called. I really don't. I feel like he's your best possible option for somebody sitting at home.
I think he's probably retired and happy being retired. I don't think he has. I have not heard a single thing about him saying
he's
he
not
wants
retired.
To play.
He says it's free agent. He's a free agent.
I don't think
I
have not heard a single thing about him saying no one's called me even though I want to play. Usually, you
I don't
those
know
reports.
if anybody's called him, but seeing the Dobbs, I mean, obviously everybody likes to go Dobbs. Why couldn't we get Dobbs? If everybody knew that Dobbs was going to cost a 6th-round pick, I bet you there were 12 teams that would have called for Dobbs at that price. Anyway, Giants are tough. Nothing to watch. Already thinking about next year. I want them to sign a free agent quarterback like a Jameis Winston, and then hopefully get somebody like Marvin, maybe. And then maybe you can see where you're sitting at for a quarterback in the next round, or maybe you trade up and get one. But we'll talk about that come draft day. The Jets. Oh my God, it's happening again. What, Chris? Can the Jets recover? They're the only team on this show that has a chance to recover in the standings. Do you full on anticipate failure? Because it's time to start asking you the tough questions, my friend.
The funny thing is, the easiest path for them somehow at this point in time is to somehow manage to win the AFC East. That's the funny thing, because they still have 2 games with Miami. They still have another match with Buffalo this week and another game with the Patriots. So half their division games are still on the table. With the next 2 could decide where they stand. The next 2 are the most important, this week with Buffalo, next week with Miami. As you said, the defense hasn't fallen off. They haven't reached that point where the defense is just fed up with everything. The offense, has moved the ball. They got a touchdown called back because Zach Wilson stepped out of the 2-yard line when he went to dive into the end zone. They had another touchdown called back because CJ Uzomah held on the goal line. They are just self-inflicted wounds left and right.
Is that a reflection of Saleh? The penalties are very high. They have a lot of penalties.
The funny thing is, I don't know if it's a reflection of him or what. It's holding penalties on the offense. It's like CJ, like the funny thing is, it tends to be CJ Uzomah. There's a big play on the offense. CJ Uzomah tends to be the one that gets called on the penalty. Like they cut Michael Carter yesterday. And I was like, oh, if they cut someone on the offense, why wasn't it CJ Uzomah? That man literally cost them the game by holding on the goal line. We talk ad nauseum about Zach Wilson's shortcomings. He actually
the word of the day, nauseum.
Yeah, he actually played relatively well on Sunday night, despite throwing a very costly pick towards the end of the game. He actually put the ball in a good spot on that Hail Mary on the last play of the game, and then Conklin batted it down when Garrett Wilson actually had a decent chance at catching it if Tyler Conklin wasn't there. But, he didn't play terrible. I'm not trying to be a Zach Wilson defender. I do think that he, is not the long-term answer. You are definitely looking elsewhere once Rodgers' contract is up or whenever he decides to hang him up, whether it's after next year or 2 years down the line. But it's, Rodgers says he's going to be good to go mid-December.
I don't want to hear that.
I also don't want to hear it because I think that, I'm not trying to say let's look to next year, but, you have him next year. Do you want to risk it? You put him out there just because you're quote unquote in the mix. And then he goes down, and then guess what? The next year is completely shot. And what did you do? All you did was just screw yourself for 2 years. So what are you really doing in that case? So it's
last question for you. Does
it's
Saleh
kind of a
come back
damned if
next
you do,
year, no
damned.
matter what?
I do like Saleh. I know a lot of people don't. I know.
What do you like about him?
I think
because what you're doing now is what he does every game, just nothing. I got penalty after penalty.
So well, also I think part of the problem is that I think that, as I said, going into the season with Hard Knocks and everything, there's too much meddling from above. I think that Woody has meddled a lot. I think that has been one of the biggest issues, is that someone like that needs to step back. I think that Woody needs to take a step back because he's been asked,
join John.
Like he's basically said, they'd asked him, why are you not sitting Zach? And he said, I'm going to plead the fifth. So it's kind of one of those things where it's like, it seems like it's a directive coming from somewhere else and not from him. Like it's kind of his hands are tied one way or another.
It's probably a safe assumption. The Jets have been known for quarterback controversy for so long that I almost feel like he's so sick of the benchings and the movings that he just doesn't want to deal with it anymore. But this is the one time where you really should.
I mean, the 2 other options on the roster are Tim Boyle and
doesn't matter if it's
and Trevor Siemian on the roster. On the roster, I don't think that there's a better option, sadly. As I don't think it's an improvement in any way. It's, if anything, it's a lateral move.
Well, we don't know that because we haven't seen him touch the field. That's the thing. You might very well be right, but it'd be nice to know because you're not getting touchdowns with Wilson.
And also I think that The offensive game plan has just been incredibly predictable. They haven't gotten anything.
Well, you can thank Aaron Rodgers for that, which you can thank Woody Johnson for. So it all comes back to Woody.
As I said, I think that Woody Johnson just meddled too much, and that's really what has held them back. The offensive game plan has been stagnant. They tried a couple different things, which is nice. They had Garrett Wilson attempt to pass, which just went completely awry. I think that Alan Lazard was completely flat-footed when the ball was coming at him, which was part of why that interception happened. There are a lot of different pieces, and once again, the offensive line was just atrocious. It was a little bit better. They weren't as under pressure as they were the week before, but I do think that there are points where they just need to just figure out the holes. They need to bring in some stud offensive linemen. Maybe Roger Saffold will be good to go this week and is up on the playbook, but they just need some sort of spark on the offensive line. They need to start finishing drives. That's really what it is. The Giants had that problem when they had some quarterback play. Finishing drives is the problem. They can move the ball to about midfield and it kind of stalls a little bit. They wind up punting or getting a field goal. Very similar to what, Nick was saying. You can't win these games with field goals. You get down, you can't win a game with a field goal. All they're doing is kicking field goals. You can't win that way. Greg the Leg, it's nice to have him because it's kind of an insurance policy, but you can't win by just kicking field goals every single drive. You need to get touchdowns. It's a points-driven league. The defense will hold you in there, but you need to do something on the offensive side. You need to play complementary football. When you don't play complementary football, you're not going to win the games. End of story.
End of story. Now, the Bills. Man, the good news for the Jets is the Bills are inventing ways to lose. I'm sorry the Giants couldn't steal that victory. They absolutely should have, but oh my gosh, 12 men on a field goal block. I just want to know, and we'll never know, how is it not field goal block? The same 11 guys always. Did somebody get hurt? There could be an explanation. Did somebody get hurt? Did somebody on the defense just not come off the field and think it was third down or something? What happened?
That was
Josh Allen's face was all of us at home.
And Josh Allen this year has reverted back to early years Josh Allen. It's crazy. And also just a little fun fact too for us. I was doing the math earlier during Johnny's praise of the Bears, and for all our teams combined right now, with this show is currently sitting at an 11-28 record for this season.
Maybe it's the curse of next man up.
And somehow the Jets have about half of those wins.
Somehow the best one.
That's the world that we live in right now.
Jets, Bears, and then Patriots and Giants.
That's the world we're in, and that's just a sad world.
What blows my mind as a Bears fan, you're always talking about the Jets and the lack of offense. This Jets team reminds me so much of my teenage years of watching the Bears, of Briggs, Urlacher, Peanut Tillman, Julius Peppers, these great Bears defenses that always keep the offense in the game, and the offense just can't move the ball, can't score, beat themselves. It's like the same exact blueprint. I'm looking at the points forced right now. The points forced scored. The Jets, the Patriots, and Giants are dead last, bottom three in points forced. Jets have 144 points, Patriots 141, and the Giants 118. Dead.
We are the worst offensive.
I'm surprised we broke 100.
My Bears are terrible. We're not a good team, but I will say I've seen stretches where they have been able to move the ball. They can score. The defense has let them down a lot this year. So, but yeah, that Bills game the other night, Anthony, the Bills did not deserve to win. No matter what we can talk about the end of the game field goal, the Bills did not deserve to win. You turned the ball over that much,
especially on the first play of the game. They turned the ball over.
Yeah.
And it looks like Stephon Diggs is fed up with everything. It seems like he might want out of Buffalo.
Such a baby.
We're definitely on Diva watch with the Stephon Diggs. I think we're probably seeing the last of him in Buffalo. He's probably on his way out, going somewhere else next year. Maybe he'll go join the Giants and follow Daboll down to there.
Doubtful. He'll only go to a top. I could see him going to Dallas with his brother.
He joins his brother.
Just to ruin my life. Personally. Well, we didn't get to as much around the league stuff as we would have liked, but obviously we saw the scores. We saw a lot of upsets. AFC remains wide open. We'll get to it more probably on next week's show. But guys, just hug your loved ones, okay? It's been a tough year for all of us. Obviously, this was Next Man Up on Down the Rabbit Hole Media. Thanks, as always, for tuning in. Go Alouettes. There's
Watch
some
the Grey
optimism,
Cup on
Nikki. Watch
Sunday,
the Grey
6
Cup.
p.m. CFL Plus.
Parlez-vous Francais, whatever the hell I was trying to say to start. I don't know French. It's very clear. Thank you so much for tuning in, and thank you so much for your support of both Next Man Up and Down the Rabbit Hole Media. If you enjoyed this show and want to hear other shows or want to learn more about our content, please check out all of our links and information on dtrabbithole.com. Subscribe to us on YouTube. Subscribe to us on Spotify. Thank you so much for your support. And if nothing else, just tell a friend. We really appreciate your time. Thank you from the bottom of our hearts. And as always, be well.